Well, hello everyone. I want to thank Josh, Jake, Anna, and the rest of the team here at Cannabis Science Conference for inviting me. This is a really special talk because I'm normally a neuroscientist talking about the science behind cannabis. And for this talk, I'm actually going to be talking about the scientists that do the research. So a little bit switch of pace for me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we accelerate clinical cannabis research at Impact Network. I'm a neuroscientist, and I first published on the endocannabinoid system 10 years ago in 2006, so it's been a passion of mine since my graduate school days. Where are we right now with cannabis research? So I'm going to be talking a little bit about our past, our present, and where we need to go in the future to really expand this emerging field of medicine. So what we know about cannabis right now is actually a heck of a lot. If you look at cannabis, it's more studied than almost any drug on the market, including Tylenol, which is something, we're all taking every single day, and then we're finding out in the news, it might not be safe during pregnancy, it might not be safe if you're taking this medication, right? The cannabis, if you do a search on PubMed, which is the search engine, sort of the Google for scientific studies, if you type in cannabis or marijuana, you're going to pull up over 24,000 studies. Now, some of these studies are with rodents, some are in humans, some are looking at the benefits of cannabis, some are looking at the addiction potential. But I mean, 24,000 studies. Clearly, we do know a lot about this plant and some of the compounds in it, including THC and CBD. When you look at some of the other drugs that are on the market and actually are scheduled lower than cannabis, and as a reminder, cannabis is a Schedule I drug. Schedule II drugs, opiates like fentanyl and OxyContin, which, to be fair, are probably the reason why we are now having an opiate epidemic in this country. I mean, these drugs are studied, they have been studied much less than cannabis. I mean, fentanyl, you have 21,000 studies. Because it is a dangerous drug, you can overdose from. But OxyContin, we have 2,800 some studies. So when we talk about there's not enough research, we don't really know if cannabis is safe. I mean, you just heard about the pharmacokinetics about cannabis. We do understand how it works in the body to some extent. We do need more research, but we definitely have more research than other drugs that are on the market, are approved, and are not even scheduled at all. So speaking of human research, so some of those studies that I was just talking about from PubMed are actually not whole plant medicine. When we talk about whole plant medicine, we mean the flower or bud, right, that people can smoke or consume in edibles, things like that. There has actually been human research with cannabis that has been sourced from the only right now legal farm in the United States, which is at the University of Mississippi. And so since 1999, there have actually been 17 studies, and all of them have been independently funded because the government doesn't really fund research on the medical benefits of cannabis. So most of these studies have actually happened in California at the University of California at San Diego, because when they legalized medical marijuana, they put in the law that they actually had to legalize cannabis research to make sure that cannabis is safe for the citizens of California. And they initially funded an institute, I think it was at the tune of $10 million, but then never really put any additional funding towards it. Thankfully, the researchers have found ways to continually to fund their research because it is very important. And if you look through some of the studies here, I just listed all of them, and this is actually from the NIH website, so it is public record. You can see most of this is actually looking at smoked cannabis for pain, whether it's pain with HIV/AIDS, whether it's nerve pain, MS pain, just a lot of pain studies. And I mean, that is important because cannabis is usually used for pain. And in fact, in Colorado, where I'm from, 93% of medical marijuana patients report pain as their qualifying condition. And here's a continuation of some of the other studies. You might notice that the last two studies are the most recent studies. One is happening at the University of Colorado, Cannabis versus oxycodone, and the one before it is sort of the infamous Sicily study that took years and years to actually get off the ground, but it's the study of smoked marijuana, looking at THC and CBD strains on the treatment of PTSD in veterans. So that is actually probably the first thing that's going to lead, if the results are good, towards possibly being able to use cannabis in sort of as a pharmaceutical drug, because the safety of smoked marijuana will actually be very thoroughly looked at. But if you look at this list, right, there's so many things that cannabis might be able to treat. I mean, we're talking maybe like hundreds of conditions. If you look at this list, there's not a single study on cannabis for cancer. And that's a qualifying condition for cannabis in almost every state. And in fact, Marinol is often used to help stimulate appetite in cancer patients. So the fact that it's never been studied in the whole plant form is a little surprising. And a lot of cancer patients are frustrated with the fact that there is not a single study right now in the United States. I think Donald Abrams tried to do a study out in San Francisco, and there was just a lot of legal hurdles that, you know, ended up with the study not proceeding. And from my knowledge of what is happening with research right now, I mean, there's just been a whole bunch of studies on halt, or studies that need to be initiated, but either funding is an issue, and there's a whole bunch of other hurdles. So I'll go into why it's so hard to do cannabis research in the United States. A lot of people ask me, as a neuroscientist who does cannabis research, why are you here? Like, go to Canada or some other country where it's a little bit easier, right? Unfortunately, that wouldn't really help our movement here to get accessible and safe and affordable medicine to patients in the United States. So part of the work we do at Impact is assessing what the problems are in cannabis research, and how we can fill the gaps, and how we can change policy so that we can make these studies easier. Because, I mean, face it, we've never had such an amazing new field of medicine and so many potential treatments that could replace what we have on the market. So it's really important that we do cannabis research here, as well as collaborating with our partners across the world. This is really a team effort. So we really need all hands on deck. So making it easier to get from launch of a study to funding to patient enrollment to publication is what we're all about. So challenges to research, lack of funding. The federal government is just not ponying up the money for most studies on the medical benefits. On the state level, if you see, there are some states, including Colorado, that is putting money out for studies, but there's usually strings attached. We want to look at sort of the harms of recreational marijuana, as opposed to let's fund a cancer study. And again, Colorado still has, even though they put out funding, has not funded a cancer and cannabis study. Other challenges we have is that we have to deal with all these government agencies or university administrators, and not all of them are as savvy as we would hope about cannabis. In fact, you know, we deal with people that have been indoctrinated by the DARE generation and all that. You know, cannabis is harmful. There's a fetal marijuana syndrome. It causes brain damage. It's irreversible. I mean, these are things that we hear when we talk to university administrators across the country, or we don't want drug dealers talking to our scientists. And you're like, that's not real life, okay? So we have to deal with a lot of miseducation and misinformation, and just literally reprogramming people about what research is. I mean, we're not doing anything out of the box. It's just like researching any other medical condition, is that the medicine that we're looking at isn't a pharmaceutical drug, it's a plant, it's botanical medicine. So we're really not that outside the box. The only outside of the box part is that it's a Schedule I drug, which makes our life very challenging. Other things that are issues is that, you know, the universities and even researchers can have political pressure not to do these studies. A lot of schools don't want to be known as, you know, the marijuana research school. You know, just like Colorado didn't really want to be known as, you know, the pot state, and now everyone believes that we're the pot state. We sort of are. I mean, Oregon is too, right? One of the other issues for researchers that want to get into cannabis research is that there's really a lack of organizational support because this is so stigmatized. There really isn't a cannabinoid medicine department. Some states are now launching institutes. I think there's one at Thomas Jefferson now in Pennsylvania. CSU Pueblo has established an institute for cannabinoid research. And then again, there's the one at the University of California, San Diego. So there are some places that are starting to put these, very young departments together. And I'll talk a little bit about the history of that and what we can learn and how we can make more of these institutes across the United States. Since again, it's a Schedule I drug and we can't ship local cannabis across state lines yet. So it's really important for each state to have their own research program. Another issue with doing research is that we have all these rules about education and drug-free campuses. When you're dealing with a college, for example, you have people that are, you have students that are underage, they're not even old enough to drink, campuses don't want marijuana on campus. Some campuses don't want their students learning about marijuana or working in marijuana labs, so you have all these additional hurdles because, education is happening in the same place where these research studies would be happening. And again, we come back to that issue of, okay, well, as a researcher, you can normally have your choice of like, okay, I want to order, this chemical from Aldrich or this company. I mean, with marijuana, it's really, you have one company to call. It's the government, and it's going to come from Mississippi. They did change the regulations to allow for different groups, if they're qualified and they meet the standards of, of what the DEA has set out, to possibly approve one or more cultivation license for research-grade marijuana. But I'm pretty sure, one, it's going to be very difficult for any group to get that. And two, a lot of the universities actually already said publicly on record, I don't want to apply for this. Our university is not going to, because to have a Schedule I grow is very, very expensive. And we're talking millions of dollars in security and other, in a space that perhaps isn't on the main campus with the students. They just don't want to deal with it. And then what if they invest all this money into a Schedule I grow and then it changes to Schedule I too, and they didn't need, all these armed guards and crazy things. So the universities just don't really want to get involved, and it's sort of a sad thing. So we'll see if the DEA actually issues any additional licenses. We really hope that they do, because it would be nice to have a choice in a variety of strains, potencies, and just, again, right now we know that the quality of marijuana that comes out of the University of Mississippi is really poor, so any choice is an improvement on what we have. So getting a little bit more in depth into funding challenges. So again, NIH is the largest funder of biomedical research in the United States, and let's just say on their website they say that they fund medical cannabis research, but when you actually break it down, you see a lot of research on synthetic cannabinoids or liquid THC. You have inhibitors of FA, which is the enzyme that breaks down anandamide, so basically drugs that might relieve pain that are targeted at boosting anandamide levels. But that's not cannabis. It doesn't grow out of the ground. So when you really look at the dollars, there's no dollars going to whole plant medicine research, or if it is, it's only looking at the harms and addictive potential of that use. So what we see is a big disconnect. So the majority of consumers, whether it's recreational or medical, are smoking cannabis. And so they're using whole plant medicine, yet we're not allowed to look at the benefits, which is really confusing because we have all these medical marijuana programs, and they all have qualifying conditions saying it's for pain, it's for cancer, it's for this. Well, why aren't we studying that? It's sort of crazy. And then finally, another funding challenge is that there are, the traditional source of funding for medical research is NIH. But then there's other, foundations. We have Lupus Foundation, we have ALS Foundation, MS, you name it, there's a foundation for it. But as researchers, it can be really frustrating because you don't know what they think about cannabis, right? Publicly, most nonprofits will not have a position one way or the other on cannabis because they don't want to lose potential donors for their current programs. You know, it's sort of just politically murky and they don't want to get involved. And so as a researcher, you're like, should I apply for this grant? Will they just throw it in the garbage? I don't know. So that's one of the things that we've been trying to do at Impact Network is trying to figure out what different nonprofits that actually have millions of dollars to give away for research think about cannabis, and if we can sort of press them in the direction of funding this research, because that's what we need right now is independent dollars for research that will come along with strings from the federal or state governments. So another issue, well, really major issue with cannabis research is that Schedule I bottleneck. So typically, I mean, you could have a study, right? You think of the study, you put in an approval for these IRB approval to go through the ethics board, you get funding for it, and then you can typically start enrolling patients about 6 months afterwards. So it's a pretty rapid process as long as you're not doing anything that could really harm patients and really needs, you know, like that hand-holding process with the regulatory agencies. But when you look at anything with cannabis, we're not even talking about THC. There was a study that just launched at the University of Colorado School of Medicine and looking at CBD, which again is the non-psychoactive component of cannabis. We're not talking about getting people high here. Even that study took about 2 years from funding from Colorado to actual enrollment of patients. And this is the reason why. Well, most researchers that want to get into cannabis research don't have a Schedule I license. And so that's one hurdle you have to get over. And if you do actually obtain your license, then you need, you know, very expensive safes, you need a place to put the safes, you need security. I mean, it's a hassle. And it can take quite a while to come up with the money and space and just deal with all these agencies and negotiating how to do this. And if you're at a university that's never done cannabis research before, trust me, they don't know what they're doing, you don't know what you're doing, nobody knows what you're doing. And the DEA doesn't even know. I mean, their job really pretty much is to enforce drug laws, and now their new job is to sort of manage cannabis research. I mean, they're clueless. So it's a mess. So what we really need to do is reassign that task. I mean, if they don't want to do it, we can give it to somebody that cares more about the community, right? So another issue that's really weird and seems to only happen with cannabis research is that normally as a PhD you can order Schedule I drugs if you have a license, but they made this weird, I guess, little rule about cannabis where you need to be an MD, not a PhD, so there's been some issues where people have been trying to apply for licenses and they need to get like collaborators that they normally wouldn't need just to have an MD on staff to be able to run that. Okay, IRB hurdles. So, you know, maybe your university said, yes, go ahead and go do this. You know, you've got the money, the DA somehow you've dealt with, and you're like ready to go. And then the ethics board is basically clueless, right? You're dealing with people from the community, some medical experts, et cetera, that have to say, your research will not harm patients and it's good to go. And they keep working with you until you come up with a study protocol that meets their concerns. And so there's been some institutes where people have literally been fighting with the IRB boards for like 2-3 years to try to get research done. And some of them are just, you know, they get frustrated. And so either they just don't go forward with their study because they feel like it's virtually impossible, or they have to find a new university to try to go do it with. And these aren't really, you don't have to like be a, you know, sort of like this, you shouldn't have to do like creative strategy to get science done. Normally you just submit and it's a pretty easy process. So these are some of the challenges that can happen with an IRB board that doesn't really understand cannabis. One is requesting pregnancy tests, which sound trivial, but it's a hassle for patients, and it's a hassle and that it's an extra expense. And the reason why some people have gone through and they've requested for pregnancy tests for study participants is because they're afraid that women of reproductive age might get pregnant and then they'll have a fetal marijuana baby. And again, we have to remind people that there is no fetal marijuana syndrome. We still don't know exactly everything that's happening with the developing brain with marijuana, but it's definitely not as harmful as alcohol, and in fact, it may not be harmful at all, depending on, you know, the results of current studies that have come out in the last 4 months. So we can definitely say that cigarette smoking and alcohol is much more harmful than using cannabis in pregnancy, and requiring a pregnancy test is really unnecessary for study participants that aren't looking to get pregnant. Another issue is driving. So most universities will not let you use cannabis on site. So there's been some interesting stories of researchers telling me, you know, maybe we need to have like this bus and somebody smokes inside this bus and then they walk across the street to the campus and then we can take their blood and everything. And I'm like, this sounds bizarre. Like, I'm sorry, we're trying to do research and like, you know, it's just, we have to come up with all these creative ways around these like loopholes. And I mean, none of this, how does that make the patient safer? Telling them to go smoke in their car and like walk across the street, I feel like that's worse. I'd rather have them be able to consume cannabis in a safe place and on campus, and most universities will not let you do that. Universities that do allow cannabis studies on campus usually have, you know, interesting rules as well. Smoke-free campuses won't let you smoke, so it has to be vaped, and most patients are smoking cannabis, they're not vaping cannabis. So again, we're having a disconnect between what's happening in real life and what we're studying in the lab. We're studying lab rats, not real humans, and I'm sorry, that's not really the purpose of science. We should be studying real life scenarios. And then the other issues too is that if you were to study a local product, there's usually no way that you're supposed to be able to test the potency of the product on campus. So then there's issues of, if you are going to be studying a local product, do you take the word of the testing lab that you're using, or, you know, like there's no way to double validate that the product you're getting and the patients are using is actually that product. So there's a lot of hurdles. And even other questions that come in are dosing, right? You know, if you're vaping cannabis, you know, you might get a different dose from day to day, or, you know, purity of products. There's so many issues. So we really need to figure out what's the best way to do consistent, safe dosing in a way that isn't so silly that all of your, you know, study participants drop out. Okay. Other issues that really we have, we understand that the university's hands are tied, right? They don't want to lose their federal funding for education and things like that, and they have big bad lawyers that they spend a lot of money on that tell them, you know, how to minimize risk, right? And the little cartoon over here is pretty much, we've considered every potential risk except the risk of avoiding all risks. And that's actually a huge risk here when we're seeing the opiate epidemic. I mean, while we wait on what the right action to do is, people are dying. Vets are dying, addicts are dying. I mean, like, what are we waiting for? Let's just do it. Everyone's on board, like, and we just have one, you know, crazy lawyer on top saying, no, we can't do this. So it doesn't make much sense to me. And so one of the actual real reasons for not allowing research on the medical benefits of cannabis or doing human clinical trials at a university was, we cannot be aiding and abetting in the legal industry. That's right. Letting dispensaries know whether cannabis could actually help a qualifying condition is considered by some attorneys for universities as aiding and abetting in illegal drug ring. So that doesn't make any sense to me. Other problems, they won't accept donations from cannabis businesses to fund research. Again, dirty money that comes up. And you're going, okay, this is a medical dispensary that is treating patients, they're doing everything on the up and up. What is wrong with this? You'll take marijuana tax money, but you won't take the money directly from the companies. Like, what's the difference, right? So again, there's a lot of technicalities. And so when we have universities or we have the federal government saying, I'm not gonna fund this research, well, you're not gonna fund it, but you're also gonna not let anyone else fund it, that doesn't make any sense. So we really have a suppression of research here in the United States. And again, universities, so even if you set up a study design, which we have a researcher that did actually pull off a double-blind study, basically with patients picking up an unlabeled cannabis product using that strain for say 2 weeks, doing a washout, and then picking up another strain that they did not know what it was or what the ratio was in there. And the university approved it, but then said that they would never approve something like that again, just in case the government got mad. Again, why is the government getting mad when really no one's touching the cannabis? The patients are, you know, getting it, purchasing it themselves. There's really no issues, like no laws are being broken, but everyone's just so like on eggshells. And then finally, like we have this other weird issue where I don't want to say we have a lack of qualified talent because there's so many amazing people working in this industry, But to be honest, I mean, looking at 111 plus cannabinoids, 100 different medical conditions, all these cannabinoids synergize with each other, we need an army of scientists. And right now, we're dealing with, doctors aren't even trained on the endocannabinoid system in medical school. There's no cannabinoid medicine residency, so where are we going to find the doctors to run all these clinical trials that might be coming up in the future, right? We have to look in the future and assume that something's gonna change, right? I mean, we have more than 25 states where cannabis has been legalized, so what is the next 5 to 10 years gonna be looking like? And so we're gonna need doctors that understand the endocannabinoid system, whether it's to run research, whether it's just deal with patients, because more and more patients are gonna start asking about medical marijuana. On the research side, most scientists don't know about the endocannabinoid system either. It's sort of sad when you're in the dark as the rest of the population. I mean, even myself, I was a neuroscientist, I studied drug addiction, I was funded by NIDA. I had to teach myself the endocannabinoid system, so that to me speaks volumes, and I mean, I was trained 10 years ago. Other things, so if we have a very small population of really top-notch faculty that are experienced in the endocannabinoid system, cannabinoid medicine, who will train the next generation. I mean, you have new institutes forming, and maybe you have one researcher there that has any inkling about the cannabinoid medicine. So really, do we have enough trained faculty to go and teach, set up all these departments across the country? We may actually be at a shortage right now to keep up with the demand that may be building. Other issues is just stigma, legal challenges, lack of funding, okay? Imagine if you are a graduate student right now and you're like, I know cannabis helped my mom, it helped these people, I want to study this and commit my life to this. Well, is the funding there for you? There's not really a cannabinoid medicine fellowship. If you apply to NIDA to go study the benefits of cannabis, your proposal's probably going to get rejected. Unfortunately, you have that picture of the broke scientist. We'll cure cancer for food. And unfortunately, we have so many scientists. I meet scientists every day. They beg us for jobs. They're like, all I want to do is use cannabis to cure MS, to cure lupus, to cure this disease. I mean, they're passionate about this, but they can't find funding. They can't find labs. They cannot find mentors. And this is breaking my heart. So we want to live in a world where we have the next generation of cannabis researchers fully funded, excited, and motivated to change the world, not feeling hopeless and lost. And that's unfortunately where most of them are right now. So they have to just work at some other job until something changes. And I mean, they're active and passionate right now. And then also another issue too is that we have top talent here in the country that have been studying the endocannabinoid system, and the research funding has been drying up for all of research, not just cannabis research. But I talk to researchers every day that are moving to Canada, moving to other countries, or just, saying, screw it, I'll leave academia, I'll go run a cannabis testing lab, which there's nothing wrong with that, but then we're reducing our pool of researchers that could be doing these clinical trials and adding to the volume of knowledge about this plant. And then I want to go and give a little history lesson, because right now I've been sort of Debbie Downer, right? There are so many problems, God, if only it would get better. We do have hope. And so as a neuroscientist, I learned about the history of neuroscience. It's a new field. I mean, honestly, it didn't exist 50 years ago. And so it brought together scientists from all different departments, and everyone had a different way to study the brain, right? Some people are imaging, some people are doing tissue culture, there's all these different methods, there's different backgrounds, but at the end of the day, everyone's coming together to understand the brain. And we have advanced so far with this community of scientists collaborating together. And I wanted to read you the Society for Neuroscientists statement and see whether this rings true for cannabinoid medicine. So Society for Neuroscience created unity out of an enormous diversity of approaches and disciplinary traditions and a complicated narrative that involves numerous individuals, institutions, new technologies, new biological discoveries, and changing social, economic, and political contexts. Replace neuroscience, that's cannabinoid medicine. We're all coming from different walks of life, and somehow we're going to iron this all out and come together as a community and really bring cannabinoid medicine to the forefront. Neuroscience right now is the top funded scientific discipline. Most scientists, most funding, most new trainees. It's the sexy part of science right now. Well, I want to make cannabinoid medicine the new sexy, so we have hope. So to give you a little bit of history onto what's happening here with cannabinoid medicine, for the last 16 years, there actually has been some progress. There's been several organizations that have gotten scientists together to promote cannabinoid medicine research, putting together conferences like this one. And there's been a lot of great progress. The one issue we have is that there really hasn't been a lot of, say, using scientists to promote social change or policy reform. And on this list, I would say probably, besides Impact Network, Americans for Safe Access was really the first 501c4 that was activating scientists to go in the media in front of legislators to try to change policy. So most scientific professional organizations, right, they don't want to get involved with politics. So it's great to say, okay, well, we're going to do some research, but really the responsibility is on us as researchers to speak up, to talk to our legislators about what we know and how we can protect the patient community, how we can say, okay, it does help with pain, it does help my patients, it does, I saw this in the lab, and just talk to your legislators, try to make better policy. I mean, we can complain all day, but nothing's going to change unless we step up and say what's on our mind. We have to speak out against the DEA, we have to speak out against some of these agencies and just say, this is wrong, this is despicable, we need to change this.
Yes.
So a little plug for Impact Network. So we are a 501c3, we're based in Denver, and Impact stands for Improving Marijuana Policy and Accelerating Cannabinoid Therapeutics. So we do this through research, education, and advocacy. And we really believe that in order to integrate cannabis into healthcare and make this option available for everyone, it takes a village. We need the cannabis patients, we need the advocates, we need the universities, we need scientists in cannabis, we need scientists outside of cannabis. We need every single person to fix this broken healthcare system. Now, we don't want to fix it. We want to create a new healthcare system. We want one where we're not treating patients like customers. We want to prevent medicine. We want to extend life. It sounds crazy, but we believe that cannabis will disrupt healthcare. And we have to look at it that way. Instead of just this fledgling little alternative medicine field, no, this is the new healthcare. So there's several ways to get involved with Impact. I won't bore you all with them. If you want to get to know us, you can stop by our booth and help out. We are a nationwide organization, and hopefully in 2018 we'll grow globally as well, because the entire world needs us. So I have some special news today. So we were actually awarded a grant from Drug Policy Alliance to start Scientists for Legalization. And so again, beliefs are one thing, but turning them to action and policy reform is really important. And Drug Policy Alliance has been a leader for years in initiating all sorts of drug policy reform. And so what we're planning on doing with Scientists for Legalization, we already have a small group of scientists that have, everyone's sort of like scared, right? They're scared of losing their funding, they're scared of losing their jobs, but there's strength in numbers, there's strength in the collective impact of researchers that have a moral conscience. And so what we're looking to do is come out publicly with a statement from researchers, whether they're scientists, doctors, it doesn't matter. If you do research, whether it's official, whether it's not, whether you want to do research, we want you. And so, but we want scientists that agree with our philosophies. And some of our beliefs and requests are, that cannabis and all natural cannabinoids should be removed from the Controlled Substance Act. That no patient should be waiting for access to cannabis until we determine it's safe. We believe that there shouldn't be legal or social risks to participating in cannabis research, whether you're the university, a researcher, or a study participant. No agency like Child Protective Services should be being called on you for enrolling in a study. Guess what is happening in places? Other things that we are passionate about is that cannabis research should be funded by the federal and state government. And so something very similar to this happened in Canada. There was a roundtable of scientists, and they went and they had a 2-day summit, and they came up with a list of principles, and they told their federal government, you should be funding this research. So we haven't really done that here. I mean, those scientists are, have been sticking out their neck. Well, together we're stronger. So we have to assume also when we make these demands that maybe we actually might be able to make a step forward. And I want to say too that Impact Network is actually set up as a grant receiving institution with the federal government, with NIH. So if things do change, we could actually apply for federal money from the NIH and disperse it even to independent scientists that aren't affiliated with academic institutes. So that's actually a huge step for us, and that also just happened. And then finally, we believe as researchers that cannabis research should be objective, it should be broad focused, not just risk, not just 1 or 2 conditions. Let's study all of them because there are too many people waiting and dying on traditional pharmaceuticals. And then finally, we also believe that no researcher or educator should be fired or not hired for advocating or being a medical patient themselves. As you know, many employers still drug test. And so this is an issue that's very, this is an issue that's very personal for me. I have fibromyalgia. I was actually considered disabled. I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't take care of myself. And so for me, I use medical cannabis every single day, and it is the only reason why I can get up and go to work and do this, is giving my life back. But I mean, traditionally, if I went to an employer and told them I had a medical marijuana card, would I be allowed anywhere near a Schedule I substance? No. And I have been a Schedule I researcher. I did cocaine, heroin studies. I did everything. And so this day, I'm a known medical marijuana advocate. Would I be hired by university? Probably not. I have a history too with the legal system. After being an advocate in Los Angeles, me and my husband, we were raided at home without a search warrant, and we dealt with conspiracy charges. Conspiracy for what? They didn't know, I didn't know, nobody knew. We didn't do anything wrong. I write books and consultations and organize scientists. So, we ended up leaving Los Angeles and going to Denver, which is a much more understanding place, right? Again, free speech should never be suppressed. No one should be threatened or harassed for standing up for what they believe in, and that's what we're seeing every day now. I mean, scientists are afraid to speak out. I mean, you see Sue Cicely, she got fired from her university. I got harassed. I had to go to another state. I'm a medical marijuana refugee in Colorado, and I never thought that would happen. I lived in a state in California where cannabis has been legal for 20 years. So I never want to see another scientist do that. I never want to see a scientist that's too scared, or I have old colleagues that said, well, that's what you get for talking bad about the government. And no, we need thousands of scientists to say, you are wrong, I am not wrong, you are wrong. So that's it. Join us. We want scientists lobbying at the city, state, and federal level. If you care about botanical medicine, if you care about protecting the doctor-patient relationship, if you care about freedom of speech, if you care about a government that is not going to control what your choice of medicine is. I mean, we have basic freedoms. Your choice of medicine is a freedom. It is being attacked in this country. So as scientists, we have a moral responsibility. So, and also, in return for helping us, we help you. We help assist with legal, university, and IRB challenges. We come up with creative ways. We have a network of scientists across the country that some of us have found creative ways to get around things, of course, legally. But we have this collective knowledge, and we're stronger together. We also have identified some forms of funding that are one private or from nonprofits. So we have a network of different donors that can help. So if you want to get into cannabis research, or you're struggling to fund your own research, come talk to us. We want to help. And then with any campaign, what's really important, there's been a lot of, people with social media warriors, we actually want to see what we're doing translate into something that we can show that we've actually made a difference, right? If our campaign with Sciences for Legalization helps increase the number of cannabis researchers, or funding, or studies, publications, patents, you name it, we can measure all this, and we can show this is what happens when you organize the scientists. So we can take on a lot of other questionable things that are going on right now with our government and suppression of research in botanical medicine. So I probably have talked a little bit too long, so I'm going to go speed through this. And just tools for clinical cannabis research. Right now there's a lot of exciting things that are happening. They're going to speed up clinical research from blood tests for anandamide, so we can test whether certain diseases are linked to low levels of anandamide. So imagine your doctor could just order a blood test like they do for vitamin D, which I always nickname like vitamin weed. Imagine if you just get a vitamin weed test. I don't have enough anandamide. I guess I need to go get a medical marijuana card. That would be pretty simple, right? Other things are genetic tests. I think somebody's speaking tomorrow about the different endocannabinoid system genes and how there are mutations that can affect our response to cannabinoid medicine, as well as basically regulate our own endocannabinoid levels and possibly lead to endocannabinoid deficiency if you have a mutation. Other things, publications. I want to point out at the bottom there, Cannabis Cannabinoid Research Journal. Amazing. It's free for anyone to actually look up the journal articles. And Danielle Piamelli, who is an amazing researcher in California, is constantly looking for research. So please, we can't publish journals if there's not enough research studies. So everyone, we need you. And that's it. Please stop by our booth, 323. We'd love to talk to you. Please help us form Scientists for Legalization and join the movement. Thank you very much.